Earlier this week, in a harbor just outside of Baltimore, Maryland, in the early morning hours, a container ship, hundreds of thousands of tons of cargo, smashed into one of the support pillars of the Francis Scott Key Bridge and sent the entire superstructure into the river. Current death toll stands at 6, and we can only thank God that the incident didn't occur in the early morning rush hour, where the body count would have no doubt been in the hundreds, if not thousands. Even if this incident is an accident, and there is no reasonable evidence at this juncture to the contrary, it exposed yet another glaring vulnerability in this nation's critical infrastructure, in a place close enough to our nation's capital that it should send jaws dropping, eyebrows raising, and plans in the making. Doubtless, we will see none of the above. Over the course of the past few years, we have seen an abhorrent increase in the number of incidents, accidents, and unexplained coincidences at food processing plants all over the United States, including one stretch that saw 2 single plane collisions with said plants in the period of a week. You can accord this to coincidence, you can accord this to something more sinister, but to deny the enormity of it is patently dishonest and irresponsible. Another glaring vulnerability in our critical infrastructure. Wildfires are a fact of life in my part of the world, in the northwestern United States and all the way up to our northern neighbors in Canada. But over the past couple of years, there have been a documented increase in the number of these wildfires that were intentionally set. Whether these were malicious acts of terrorism or vandalism that got horrifyingly out of control remains to be explored, and you can choose to believe what you wish. But if you deny that it exposes yet another vulnerability to small individuals or groups of people who are willing to do harm, then you're living in a dream world. But even outside the West, and perhaps no better illustration could be found of vulnerabilities than what happened in Moscow last weekend. It is generally understood in the West that the Russians live under tighter controls than what we have come to expect in the U.S. That is a debate I'm willing to have, but let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that they are indeed tighter and more the police state that they've been portrayed, again, just for the sake of discussion. In spite of that, at the Crocus City Hall Event Center, 4 men, just 4 men, lightly armed, moderately trained, unleashed a level of chaos that can scarcely be comprehended by those of us in the West who refuse to believe that evil even exists among us. The body count stands at damn near 140 with just as many wounded. I have seen with my own eyes video footage that these savage miscreants took in the process of this atrocity. Nearly 30 people doing what they were told, sheltering in place in a public restroom, were shot down at damn near point-blank range with Kalashnikov rifles. It is not a family-friendly thing to witness, and I cannot recommend it. We exist on borrowed time here in the United States and throughout the West in light of all these vulnerabilities, exacerbated by the fact of a border that remains completely out of control in spite of our best efforts to point out that fact, illustrate it, and demand from our so-called leaders that something be done. And independent of what is coming in from the outside, we already have enough of the maggot mob on the inside. Between Antifa, BLM, other violent demonstrators, criminal elements, and predatory miscreants of all sorts, and people who will take to the streets by the tens of thousands to demonstrate for and in favor and support of an existential enemy of the West. We are talking about Hamas. You may say that you're working for the Gazans. You may say that you're trying to free Palestine, but what you are demonstrating is support for an existential enemy of the West. And how much more hope could be eroded than to come to the realization, undeniable at this point, that all of the above are supported, endorsed, and enabled by our so-called leaders and their paymasters in adversarial nations. And even more so by globalist interests above all of the above. People like Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum. It would be really, really easy at this point to lose faith, to give in to fear, to let the darkness overwhelm the light. But for myself and my brothers in Christ, I am reminded that this is Easter Sunday, where we celebrate a rebirth of hope and faith and redemption, where we celebrate a moment where the light overcame the darkness, where the Son of God overcame the tomb. Now, you do not have to share the faith to make it a matter of faith, when the question is that of faith over fear. As ordained in the scriptures and the gospels, the book of Matthew, I will build my church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. When we take an objective look at the enemies of the West and Christendom now, what could describe it better than the very powers of the gates of hell? But they shall not prevail. What it is a desire from the father of lies is to get you to give in to that fear, to let go of all faith in anything good over evil, light over darkness, and to give in to fear. And what do we know? We know that fear is a liar and a product of the father of lies. And I am here to tell you, as a man of faith, not to give in to that fear. Look around you. Even though it seems dark with everything we've already been over on a political level, we are seeing pushback from our neighbors to the north and our neighbors across the pond against the egregious overreaches of their globalist masters, demonstrating that without these people and these people, we don't eat. And without food, we are 6 meals away from anarchy. But beyond a political level, on a spiritual level, here and throughout the West, revivals like this taking place at universities that are well known as indoctrination camps for our youth to steer them away. And yet these revivals are overwhelming that push. In France, we are seeing demonstrations in the streets, and in every major city of the United States, there is a shift, a climatic consciousness shift in the way we are seeing things. We are coming back to faith from fear. Take a look at this in Haifa on Good Friday. These people are within the synagogue of Satan, or the reach thereof, with the secular nation of Israel, and directly in the crosshairs of the enemy of my enemy with Hamas right across the way. And yet they turned out by the tens of thousands to carry a cross through the streets on Good Friday. It's almost as if, like these 1.5 million that turned out in Brazil, that once people opt for faith over fear, that it develops its own momentum, a momentum that is prohibitively difficult to stop. And even in terms of the superficial, the single item cultural touchstones, men like Jordan Peterson having shifts in their consciousness and their very spirit. And I should point out that the good Dr. Peterson just this Sunday was given the rites at Catholic Mass at the very church where his wife made the conversion to Catholicism. You think it's not happening? This formerly insufferable douchebag, this pretty MFer, as I had previously described him, Russell Brand, has come around full circle. He is proudly wearing the cross and proudly representing faith. And even Rogan, skeptic though he is showing some vulnerability on that front. Is he not? But again, these are just cultural touchstones, man. These are influencers. The real battle is in the heart of the individual, and that individual is each and every one of us. It may be a platitude and a cliche, but it is a fact that everything you want is on the other side of fear. There's plenty out there that's worthy of your fear, make no mistake. But you have to err on the side of faith. That doesn't have to be the faith, but the innate faith that we have, that good will triumph over evil, that light will prevail over darkness, that signal will prevail over noise. In light of Live the Three, Stone, that was just for you, brother. I won't lie to you. There is a fight coming. And in many ways, that fight is already upon us. But giving into fear is not the way to win. And on the basis of what that faith really means, we can stand Deus Vult, God wills it, against those forces. But I'm not ruling out anyone. I'm talking about my Asa true brethren, my heathen brethren, and people that choose to remain delightfully spiritually unaffiliated. I will stand with any and all righteous men as an act of faith over fear. Because it is that faith, whether it be in Christ, whether it be in your own strength, whether it be just in the ultimate nature of good, that will ultimately conquer fear. Tells us in the scriptures, 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 16, and he answered, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And I believe it down to my core. The people that strive for good and have faith are many more than those who are aligned with the forces of fear and those victims of fear that cower before them. So in the fight to come, stand with each other in faith. Refuse to give in to fear. And if you're going to go out proudly with your chin down, your knuckles up, and your eyes on the greater prize. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors. And I got to double down on this for you docs, happy leftists out there. Certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to stretch open that maw and forcibly choke you with an oversized, turgid, veiny chunk of truth cock. Welcome back, boys and girls. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon, Easter edition. Gonna do a quick roll call. We got some big stuff coming up for you today, and I'm happy for all of you who are here. We're gonna check and see which of the usual suspects are in, but right now, everybody in for the drum roll, please. You might notice I'm favoring this arm still. This is the first time this one's been out of a sling in about a week. My ass is normally in a sling, but my arm is normally out. Now the inverse is true. Actually, by the end of this program, my ass might be right back in a sling, but my arm will be out for the moment. I'm getting it imaged. You guys that were with me at Fear Inoculum last week, you know the nature of the injury. I'll fill everybody else in as we come along. We've got a guest in the house, a long-awaited interview. You guys are going to want to be a part of this, and you're going to be very, very thankful that you're here. Let me take a look, man. Let's see which one of the usual suspects has made an early appearance. Of course, we have Brother Bill Wade. Good to see you, man. I knew you were going to show up. Tommy, knew you were going to be here. Javier, hey, good evening, sir. New to your channel, student of Mr. Puzikas. Javier, I hope that we do not disappoint. I am a little abrasive at the outset. You will learn to love me or despise me. Either way, mission accomplished. Deus Volt, God bless you for being here, man. Glad you made it out. Dave, good to see you, brother. The original Cinder Sister herself, Miss Emmy. Happy to see you here. He is risen. He is risen. All of my brothers in faith are here. Brother Stone, still processing from Fear Inoculum last week. You made me proud, brother. You made me proud. And I'm so glad that you were a part of that. So glad that you were a part of it. We're going to be doing a little redux of that. And we're going to make poor Jude very, very sorry that he was not there. Let the thought crime begin. I love you, brother. We got to get you out there for Fear Inoculum, man. We got to do it. Brother Shen, hello, man. God bless you, man. I'm so thankful for all of you guys, man, for God having the good grace to have these men cross my path. We've got, oh my God, we got Deacon Mark and Ida here on board. Good to see you out there on the front porch, no doubt enjoying a nice glass of whiskey and a fine cigar. Wish I could bring an ashtray downstairs, but I got a no smoking in the house rule, so there is that. Brother Doug, faith is the truth and fear is the lie. Happy Easter to you too, good sir. Happy Easter to you too. I got it, man. I did want to make one comment. Benny, man, glad you made it. Love from Arkansas. Right on, man. Good to see you. Who else? Yes, we have the lovely Miss Charlie from directly upstairs. We are here on the command center level of the Bart Bunker. That is the second level down. There is a lower and more reinforced level, but we'll get to that from another time. We have ribeye steaks, and Sonny, I hope you're ready for this. Big tub of ribs and chicken from our dear friends over at Nordic Smoke Barbecue. I know you're jealous. It's okay. We'll make it up to you. Phil, watching from Tyler. Good to see you, brother. Glad you made it. And Brother Ryan, just watching in a fucked up place today. Well, hopefully we will be able to pick your spirits up a little bit, brother. I'm going to channel some of my strength your way for whatever it is worth, man. God love you out there. Be safe, man. Be safe, always. The bumper music, as always, for those of you who are first-time listeners, little gut-stomping rock and roll band from the smoldering embers and ruins of the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. That band is Red Desert. Name of the band is Red Desert. Name of the track is Older, No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I have gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. This one is going to be a barn burner, man. I wanted to have them on forever, and we just had a whole lot of in-depth learning and growth and discovery last week at Fear Inoculum. We're going to cover it all, man. You guys are going to dig it, man. Vinny, happy to have you on board. Let's go ahead and fade this bumper music out, man. We're going to go ahead and fade it out and just jump right into this. I got a couple of things to get out of the way real quick, the obligatory stuff. But I'm thankful for every one of you guys that are here. You guys saw the headers. You guys saw the posts. You know what the majority of this program is going to be about. I also wanted to point out as well, for those of you who are not, down here at the bottom, take a look. That is the address for my Substack. Take a look at the latest Substack that I posted. It's called Just for Men. And it is basically a statement on the Moscow massacre and how between that and the shipwreck there in Baltimore exposed a hell of a lot of vulnerabilities, man. We're a soft nation, man. We are a soft nation. We have become a soft nation with soft people. and that is ultimately going to come back and bite us in the ass in ways that people are not even ready for. We're going to go over all that stuff, man. All of that stuff and then some we're going to be going over. I want to get my sponsor shout outs out of the way real quick. I did not see if Roman and Carrie had made it on yet, but I know that if they did not, you enjoyed that, Tommy? Good. I'm glad, man. I'm glad. Stone, you like that. Right on. If Red Desert ever needs you to stop using, yes. Yeah, I should point that out. Before I do the sponsor shout outs, let me do that because Josh Vargas, really good friend of mine. Josh Vargas is he's a documentary film. Well, he's a filmmaker. Period. I've worked with him on a couple of low-budget independent horror projects, including Hair Metal Shotgun Zombie Massacre. Look that up for yourself. It's a lot of fun. But he's also a murderabilia collector, which you might think of as, okay, well, that's kind of creepy. He's got personal correspondence from Manson, Ramirez, all those guys. He's pretty fascinated with the dark side of things, but he did a deep dive on the Candyman murders. And as a result of that deep dive on the Candyman murders, wound up befriending Elmer Wayne Henley. Feel free to Google any of these search terms if you're not familiar with it. And he directed a film, a docudrama on the Candyman murders, including Elmer Wayne Henley's involvement in that. Over the course of his film project, Elmer Henley gave him access to all of his worldly possessions. Elmer Wayne Henley will die in the Texas Department of Corrections. He will die in the penitentiary. So he gave my buddy Josh key to the old school bus where all of his stuff was. Josh, as he was going through that, found some stuff, some Polaroid pictures that actually solved a murder that was connected to Dean Corll and the Candyman murders that had gone unsolved for better than 20 years in the course of the investigation. You want to talk about mysterious ways? I got your mysterious ways. So anyway, Josh Vargas, dear friend of mine, is also a metal musician. And you guys can look this up. Grazer Slayer. You guys can look this up on YouTube. Grazer Slayer. And the name of the song is Truthcock. Grazer Slayer, Truthcock. For my birthday, he went into the studio and cut this track, and it's freaking amazing, man. I am so honored when I got people that I care about and respect that are doing songs for me. I feel like I'm arrived, like I've really arrived. The only thing that could be better right now is for some independent troll to do what they did with the Dollar Store Alex Jones thing and say out loud in a review that I am a dumb person's idea of a smart person. Once that happens, I will know that I've totally hit. So, and also speaking of Substack, Megan, Sonny's wife, very gifted writer, exceedingly gifted writer. And after poking and prodding and cajoling and haranguing and, pick your goading verb, we finally got her onto Substack. She is kicking out material, and you guys get to share in that gift. So if you guys are checking me out on Substack, you should already be following her and subscribe to her. And there's going to be somebody along here in a few minutes who is also finally putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and producing some books, but we'll make that part of the larger discussion. Quick sponsor shout outs, of course, Roman and Carrie and all the fine folks and beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people, beautiful naked women, beautiful watercolor art, and testosterone-driven commentary on Planet Bart. That is a trifecta. Roman is one of my oldest and dearest friends. He's been a long-time supporter of the program. Check it out, opiumtales.com, and check out Roman Riva on Amazon. From dork to pimp daddy, he catalogs his journey from just ordinary schlub guy learning how to do art to a sought-after portrait artist that women pay for the privilege of painting them naked. Painting pictures of them naked. He might paint on them while they're naked. That's between Roman and the mom. I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, opiumtales.com. Check them out, definitely. And of course, because I got a whole tray of ribs and chicken. Sonny, did I mention that I got a whole tray of ribs and chicken upstairs? Yeah, I you guys can't see them, but I can. I had a whole tray of I got a whole tray of ribs and chicken upstairs from Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. Period. End of statement. Done. They're phenomenal. For you guys that were there at Fear Inoculum, we got to share a little story about Sonny's reaction. to Nordic Smoke Barbecue, and he is quite enamored of the ribs. It's a very funny story. We might actually get into that during the interview, but I wanted to get that. Real quick, I want to jump in our most popular segment and the one that we always lead with. We're going to jump very quickly into Ryan's Rabbit Hole. Yes, sir. I hope you guys can hear that thunderous roar of applause. I never know if my sound is working properly or not. Yes, thank you. Ryan's Rabbit Hole. I hope you guys can hear the applause, but just imagine the round of applause if you can't hear it. I never know whether it's on or not. Ryan's Rabbit Hole, man. It's always our lead segment, and it's our most popular segment. It started off just kind of a one-off. One of the things that Ryan and I, and you guys, if you're followers of the program, if you're new, just a real quick catch up. And Ryan is a dear friend of mine who opened the possibility for me to get into crane work, and it has been absolutely transformative. It changed my whole life, and we have been friends for a long, long time under different circumstances prior to that. One of the things that we bonded over is that we are both repositories of useless information. We are murder to play a game of Trivial Pursuit with, and watching the two of us having a conversation is a lot like watching tennis matches sometimes. And then your eyes start to glaze over because we go off into things that are very, very obscure. The rabbit hole is something that we do every week. Sometimes it dovetails with what we're talking about and the course of the program. Sometimes it does not. But what we want to do is we want to take you outside of the bounds of things that you're familiar with, introduce you to an historical figure or an historical event that you may not be familiar with, something conspiratorial, something esoteric, something historical. Every week is just a little bit different, but we just like to throw it out there, and the job is for you to take it and run with it and see if it affects your life and your consciousness, and if it applies to anything that is in your worldview and your character makeup. And this week, what is that dig on about the ribs is even deeper because we are in Lent right now. Okay, well, now I genuinely feel bad about it. It's not going to stop me, but and of course we got Joey, the Sultan of Sarcasm. I'm glad you made it, brother. I need an editor to help me get my stuff together. If you know anyone in Houston, Bart, you know what, man? If you can get me those documents, I can work with you as an editor. I tell you what, we'll talk more about it. Once I get through this, I'll give you a call, and we'll definitely jaw about that. The rabbit hole this week is Itzhak Bentov, and I'm going to spell that for you because I spelled it incorrectly the first 3 times that I went looking for it, because for whatever reason, I wanted to put the Z before the T. It is Itzhak, I-T-Z, H-A-K, Bentov. Bentov is a complex guy, as are most people that we cover on the rabbit hole. And the irony here, particularly considering the later subject matter, is that Itzhak Bentov is A, Jewish, and B, is dealing with higher states of consciousness that are barely tangentially related to anything of a Christ-centric nature. That may make you bristle, but I should also point out that I'm a huge fan of Robert Anton Wilson, who penned the Illuminatus trilogy, and his particular area of expertise was consciousness, conspiracy, and everything else. But I would put Prometheus Rising and Robert Anton Wilson on my list of top 5 books, period. So don't think that I'm stepping outside of the subject matter. And even if I were, that is the whole point. He did not have a university degree, Mr. Bentov. He did not. He was not classically educated in the typical sense. What he was exceedingly brilliant and more of an intellectual nature. The discrepancy there being it is very, very easy to be intelligent in the conventional sense with a college degree or that level of thing, because it comes down to indoctrination. You know how to do the 3 R's: read, remember, regurgitate. He was not that guy. He was quite the intellect and always out of the box thinking. You guys who are familiar with the history of the Middle East may be familiar with the fact that initially in 1948, there was an almost universal global arms embargo against the newly declared nation of Israel. They would not sell them munitions. No one would. No one in the West, no one in the comm block, no one would sell these people munitions. They wound up, irony for small arms, using massive caches of old Nazi Mauser rifles to to win the independence of a Jewish nation, because history and God both have senses of humor. He designed, working for Hemed. Hemed is, it's an acronym. I'll spare you the Hebrew overtones of it, but they were the scientific division of the arms ministry for the new nation of Israel. And Bentov's first claim to fame was designing their first missile. And, you know, it's sort of odd when you think of people whose later fame would be for exploring the depths of human consciousness. You don't think of weapons makers, generally speaking. But that was his first contribution. He would later go on to invent things like a steerable scope, you know, like for orthoscopic surgery, but this one was specifically designed for cardiac surgery. These were his material contributions to the world. But I'm going to throw out some of his intellectual contributions to the world here, because I've got a couple of his famous quotes bookmarked. And his books, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, on the Mechanics of Consciousness, as far as I am concerned, dealing with the depths of the way the human mind works, it is just as valid and just as heavy as anything that Huxley did on the subject, anything that Wilson did on the subject, and I would even go as far as to say beyond anything that McKenna or Leary did on the subject, because McKenna and Leary were dealing specifically with the psychedelic elements. Here's a little taste of a little window into Bentov's head. There is nothing absolute and final. If everything were ironclad, all the rules absolute, and everything structured so no paradox or irony existed, you couldn't move. One could say that man sneaks through the crack where the paradox exists. That doesn't even begin to encapsulate the depths that this guy goes to on the interior workings of consciousness and its effect on physiology. This is a great little one-off, though. The soul is the repository of information that we gather during a lifetime. Now, you can choose to apply spiritual principles to that if you are a person of faith, but even on a purely secular level, when you think about it in terms of a great consciousness, your soul, your element of that universal consciousness, does become the repository where you gather all of these things. Bentov went deep, man. I want you to pick up a copy of that book, and I want you to at least, because it's not like a huge tome or anything. It's an easy read. It's as easy a read as any of the Cosmic Trigger series from Wilson. It's short, it's concise, and it is riveting. It'll force you to look in your own consciousness and the way that it relates not only to yourself, but to your perception of the world around you, and actually involving your physiology as well. The guy's deep, man. The guy's deep. Again, Itzhak Bentov. I want you guys to look that up and do a dive, man. Do a dive. Not just, don't do, oh, well, I read the Wikipedia entry. No, don't. I want you to actually look at some of the reviews on the books. Go to Goodreads. If you don't want to pick up the whole book, go to Goodreads and maybe take a look at a couple of chapters and see if it doesn't capture your interest. I believe if you are a thinking person and if you have taken previous recommendations on books before, like from Wilson or from Huxley, I think it's going to hit with you. I think it is definitely going to hit with you. And yes, right. Yep. Stoned Ape is still a good read. And he was a brilliant physicist. Again, this guy, hell, man, you know what? You could do a deep dive just on his contributions to medicine and the invention and the way that he put together his own lab to develop these devices. He wasn't working with big pharmaceutical companies. He had his own machine shop to manufacture the metal parts. I mean, just like right there in the basement of, if memory serves, I want to say a Catholic church. he set up his machine shop in the basement of a Catholic church, if memory serves. It was. I'm about 90% sure it was a Catholic church. Anyway, the basement of a church. He had a machine shop for his metal parts. He had an extruder to squeeze out his own polymer fabrications, and he developed things that are still modifications of which are still in use today in medicine. The guy's just a brilliant cat, but these are all material things. His real contribution was in here, and how in here works within here. So that's always going to be worth reading. If you follow the program for any length of time, you guys know what an area of passion that is for me. So Itzhak Bentov is Ryan's rabbit hole for the week. You guys do a deep dive on that, come to your own conclusions, and feel free to message me, man, if you've got some things. And I do get this a lot, Ryan. And Ryan, I'm not just puffing your pecker for effect here, but I do get that a lot. It's like, by the way, man, tell your guy Ryan. And I'm like, dude, hell with it. You tell him, just message the guy and say, hey, man, thanks for that, because I've gotten more than several personal messages delivered. It's like, wow, man, that guy's really deep, man. That was cool that you turned me on to this thing or that thing. So, hell, man, tell him, let him know. So yeah, Itzhak Bentov, that is Ryan's rabbit hole for the week. And let me go ahead and switch this off on the production screen. Sunday sermon, Easter 2024. I want to give one more nod here, guys. Reverend Bart at Substack, and you want to check out Megan's Substack as well. Good writers, man. Substack is the new journalism, as far as I am concerned. All of the old school journalists, even the ones that I vehemently disagreed with from time to time, people like Barry Weiss, people like Glenn Greenwald, people like Matt Taibbi, all of these people are on Substack now because it is one of maybe 3 forums that absolutely will not censor for any reason based on any ideology. It is the purity of the essence of journalism, which has been thoroughly lost. I bounced over there not because I have any pretensions or delusions of being on that level, but because I knew that was a place that I could go to drop these opinions, to be able to reach people and not have to dodge 30-day bans every time that this comes up. Having said that I'm trying to dodge 30-day bans, we're going to jump into our right. Yeah. No one, and that's the point, Ryan. Nobody ever hits you up and says, hey, but I get messages, bro. I get messages. And it's just like, I'm like, dude, why are you telling me? Bounce it off Ryan. I think maybe you scare him a little bit. Maybe. I don't know. Cause I mean, hell, Ryan, you and I are such cuddly guys. I don't see how we can be intimidating on any level. Benny, you moved to Substack for that exact reason. So here I am saying that we're trying to dodge 30-day bans. And that leads me to our next segment, which is going to be the bigger part of the program, guys. Saddle up. We have been waiting for this for a long time. You guys know, if you followed the program, if you know me at all, then you know the history that I have with this gentleman. Sonny Puzikas is a devout man of faith. He is a solid man of skills. He is an astute observer of the human nature when it comes to the focus of what we're going to be talking about on one level or another here, which is faith versus fear. We just got done with a class that he does once a year at Fort Honey Badger on Jacksonville, Texas. If you're not familiar with it, check out Sonny Puzikas Forward Training Concepts. Get your ass down to Fort Honey Badger and do some training. Fear Inoculum is a different kind of class, all right? The straight tactical stuff that he's doing, impactology, any of the AK platform classes that he does, the pistol classes that he does, any of that stuff is very, very solid. Fear Inoculum is that, but it's also a completely different beast, because without giving away too much, and I'm going to let him expound on it, it's going to take you to some places, man. It's going to take you to some places here and here, but it's going to force you to confront not only fear, but the nature of fear and the things that are holding you back. And the irony of that is that the fear of exploring those factors has been somewhat of a deterrent for some people to even take the chance. But I will tell you, having done it now for the second year, and the first year, we could not have predicted the soul changing results of the whole thing. But this is my second year doing it, and I tell you, it hits just as hard the second time around. No matter where you are in your life, you're going to want you're going to want this to force you, if necessary, into a position to reflect on the nature of fear and how you choose to handle it, and the choices between faith versus fear. But I'm rattling on right now. I'm going to let the man do his talking for himself. Folks, I want you to welcome to the program my brother in Christ, my brother in arms, my brother, Mr. Sonny Puzikas. Sonny, are you there? We got you, brother?
Yes, sir, Bart. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear. Everybody else, just to make sure that everything's working, guys, punch over here in the comments and let me know if the sound is like solid from both sides. On the production screen, I've got it all, brother. And damn, man, I'm happy that we finally made this happen.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. I'm listening to your stuff since you started, so it's been a minute, and it's kind of like we definitely have spent a lot more time talking in person and over the phone, but we'll see how this plays out, considering that I kind of know the spirit of your podcast and what you do. So I think this is going to be like Subdeacon Mark said, this Facebook platform is probably going to double the prison term for both of us.
We were talking earlier about whether we could split it, man. It's like you have 15 days for Sonny and 15 days for me.
No, it's going to be 60 for both.
There you go. Well, what is it? Notice accessories after the fact, I think, is the actual legal term.
Yeah.
So let's jump into and I do want to get into some of the world events stuff. I mean, we were there on site at Fort Honey Badger when the whole thing broke about what was going on in Moscow last weekend, and I want to get into that to a degree. But first, if you don't mind dipping our toe into this pond first, I want you to explain to these folks what you have going on, what your goals are with Fear Inoculum, and let's dive into the faith versus fear part of the equation. And then once we get into the geopolitical stuff, we can see how that applies to those particular events. Tell us a little bit about Fear Inoculum as if you were presenting it to someone who was completely uninitiated.
Well, that's kind of running a 99% chance that they're not going to sign up, but I really don't care.
Well, we'll take the 1%, man.
Well, actually, that's what I'm looking for. We were joking, but not really joking while you were here a week ago that, at certain level, I am, how would I say? Well, I'll say the way I said it to you guys in person. I'm building an army.
Yes, sir.
It's a small army. And it's not an army in the sense that people go like, well, what are we preparing for? Is there going to be a specific mission? Like you said, things are coming. Things are coming, and they will be here in our lifetime.
Yes, sir.
And we will need men. We will need men, and what I see in this industry of mine that I've been dwelling in now for, close to 30 years, it's that while the bodies, aesthetically, physically looking at it, they look like bodies of grown men. But if you scratch the surface, we have a lot of infants armed with chainsaws.
Yes. Expound on that a little bit too, because I think that's a great analogy.
Well, that's applicable in many realms. One of them, I think, we addressed while we were doing the portion during Fear Inoculum of conflict management.
Mm-hmm.
and that is that a lot of folks look at de-escalation and how to get out of conflict. It has some artificial red lines that I will not cross. Well, I'll take this if he says that, if he says F you, if he throws me the middle finger, I'll take that. But if he tells me that my wife is fat, it's on, brother. Right. And remember example I said, well, first off, is your wife fat? Right. So if she isn't, then he's lying. Why are you getting involved with a liar?
Right.
And here's another factor to consider, because for a lot of these infants with chainsaws, why I refer to these folks like that is that their only defense is it within chainsaw. So when they say something mean back to the guy who's quote unquote insulted their bride, right, and that guy throws a punch, this said infant has nothing else but a chainsaw to use against the punch thrown. And his chainsaw is most likely going to be a firearm.
Yeah.
And the way it's going to end up, you're going to end up doing 20 to life. And all because of what? Because someone lied. Now, if your wife is fat, but she's still your wife, that means that's your standard of attraction. Or she has inner beauty that this a-hole cannot understand. She's amazing mother, she's amazing friend, she's amazing partner, and everything else about her is beautiful. Maybe aesthetically she's not, fitting the modern standard of beauty and attraction and, sexy or whatnot. But I know it's a very light example, and this is just about using firearms and not having anything between using your mouth, flapping your lips, and then pressing the trigger, right? But there is a bigger problem, and your thing that you refer to, the choices between the fear or faith. Infants are not known for courage. They are known for recklessness.
Yes, sir.
And recklessness is usually people that are reckless in their actions are people that don't appreciate complexities of life, complexities of issue. And I'll give you this kind of maybe a little bit of a long example, but I think many folks can relate to that, right? Mm-hmm. Think about it in our infancy. What music you started with, Bart? I know you did not start it with doom metal from Norway. Right? It started, although it's before, it's after our infancy, but let's take specific age groups, right? It started with songs from Bambi. It started with songs from that purple scary beast named Barney. Yeah, but this is what infants or toddlers' brain can comprehend. Not that it comprehends what's within that music or what that purple, almost transsexual looking beast, the way he acts and all that stuff represents, but there's basic simplicity of rhythm, of very slight changes in tonation, and little kid in his growth is attracted to it, right? Then you grow further, you grow a little bit older, and complexity goes up, right?
Yes, sir.
So maybe at some point you move up to, I don't know, let's use some really freaky stuff like Milli Vanilli, right? Or Girl, it's true, right? And Britney Spears or NSYNC or, things like that. Again, for many of us of our age group, it's, in the blunt language, we refer to that as music without intellect, without soul, and it's just dumb, right? But at certain age group, really, that's all you can get, because now you have some kind of a almost physical connection to that music, because the beat is very understandable. It makes you move. It gets your blood pumping and all that stuff, right? Then eventually you branch out. Some people will go maybe to a little bit harder rock. They'll listen to, in our age group, it was like Scorpions and AC/DC, right? Which is basically a pop music with some hard guitar riffs.
That's it.
Because rhythmically and lyrically, it's very basic. It's very simple. It's not a huge step up.
Right.
Well, you grow the hair, you put a leather belt, and you're a metalhead now, right? No, it's a pop music with hard guitar riffs. Eventually, you may arrive at the state where you listen to Motorhead and Iron Maiden and things like that, where now there's a little bit more musical complexity. So it's growth. You know what I mean? The growth happens. Your ability to understand and pick up more complexities and the tiny little details about music composition and obviously lyrical stuff. But at first, again, at that age, what we listen to, kids don't listen to lyrics.
No.
When you're a teenager, you listen to lyrics because it touches your heart about that first breakup of your first love that was supposed to be your love till the end of your days. You know what I mean? And you cry listening to that shit, right? And now at the age of 54, 55, we'll look back and you go like, damn, that was so stupid, so dumb, and it's ridiculous, right? But it was very real.
Right.
It was very real. For most of us growing up, that shit happened. We did that. And then eventually you may arrive at the stage where you start listening to Metallica, maybe even Megadeth, right?
Yeah.
And again, music styles will vary. People will branch off going into rap, into hip hop. Other people will arrive into, deeper soul music, whatever rocks your boat, right? Then you go heavy. Then you go Pantera. Then, you know what I mean? And then you take a huge step back, and then you discover people like Led Zeppelin, even classic music, right? You have new appreciation for Pink Floyd.
Right.
And we start paying attention to skill.
Right.
How these separate people can create this amazing complexity that has wholesomeness to it. You know what I mean? It's no longer just the lyrics, right? We progress from lyrics to message.
Right.
From groove and mood to wholesomeness, and then that our own awe of complexity of music paves way to simplified views, and then you arrive at places like Nine Inch Nails, like Tool, and you revisit old songs, finding meaning in what was meaningless. Right. But a lot of folks, where do they get stuck? They get stuck at the level of Britney Spears and Milli Vanilli. And why is it? Because it does not push you into complexity.
There's no challenge.
There is no challenge. And, and you make a choice, willful choice to live in simplicity, thinking that life will offer you that simplicity. Well, fuck, Bart. How much simplicity in life have we faced, right?
Right.
Only through facing complexities you can arrive at the point of being able to distill complexities into simplicity. And you find purpose and you find meaning in that which was meaningless. So, through Fear Inoculum, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pick people that not only have mental capacity, but for the lack of better terms, they have balls to face the unknown, to look at their own fears, face them, sometimes get beaten by them, but learn from it instead of being crushed. These are the men that I want in my army.
Yes, sir.
And I think this is the kind of men that we want in general. And I believe these are the kind of men that should be raising children. These are the kind of men that should be educating others, younger generations. Because all this other stuff of, living life on the surface, it's obviously not cutting it. Yeah. It's obviously not cutting it. So,
pushing to the other side of fear, like we covered in the opener. I mean, that is the biggest drawback. That is the biggest drawback, and I think there's a certain level of regimentation to the natural order. That some people who are willing to step their toe up to the line are not willing to take the next step, and the minute they get pushed back on, they retreat back into their comfort zone. I mean, it is sort of part of the natural order, tragically enough. But when you do find those people who are willing to take that next step forward, it definitely serves. And see if you're tracking with me on this one. I feel like it tends to add momentum. You tend to feed each other's fire. When you have a close brotherhood of those sorts of men together, and not just within the tactical context, but anytime you have a small group of people who are looking to advance themselves, who are looking to move forward, who are looking to push past the boundaries of fear and limitation, things like that, it does develop an energy of its own. It becomes self-sustaining. One motivates the other. So
I'm absolutely with you, Bart. It's it's in a way, and I know I'm making a stretch. It's kind of like a church.
uh,
It's kind of like a church. You know what I mean?
that's what I was counting on. That's what I was trying. I was like, come on, give me the spiritual element. Give it, get.
You're starting to sound like you're getting to know me or something. You know, that's good. That's good.
Well,
Listen, so sorry
with
to
that,
interrupt.
if it is like a church, please, I mean, expound on that.
So today, it's Sunday, uh, and by the way, by the calendar of most Christians in the world, Christ has risen.
Mm-hmm.
So happy Easter to all of those who celebrate. I'm Orthodox, so our Pascha is still over a month away. So I still have to suffer through 30 plus days of no meat and other hardships. But they're very similar to carrying the cross and then dying on it. So hey, I figure I'll do it. Why not? But today we went to. You met Father Barry. Obviously, you spoke to him on more than one occasion.
Yes, sir.
And he had a great sermon today. And join me on this, right? So Orthodox priest in Sunday Mass quotes Carl Jung, or some people say Carl Jung, right? And here's the interesting thing, right? Because that I'm I carry huge respect for Dr. Jordan Peterson, to whom Carl Jung was huge inspiration.
Yes, sir.
Because of his work in psychology and other things related to human nature and human interactions and how they act. And he quoted this, which I haven't heard this quote from Carl Jung before. And he said, if our religion is based on salvation, our chief emotions will be fear and tremble. If our religion is based on wonder, our chief emotion will be gratitude. And then Father Barry was expanding about, the mysteries of faith, right? Like Trinity. How can one be three? Three can be one. And people try to understand that unless, follow the science, unless science can explain it, that one can be three and three can be one, it doesn't exist. Well, we can debate that ad nauseum as far as science and how many times it's been wrong and proven wrong over and over and over again. I mean, the only thing we need to do now is both of us to put on the fucking masks on our face, and that will be sufficient example that will give us both 60-day ban.
I think I've got some N95s over here. I'll let you know.
That's okay, man. I'm fine with that. Right. But here's the thing. We were talking about things being lost in translation. The word fear in that context, as it translates from the original writings from both Hebrew and Greek, it's actually translates more as a reverential awe than fear.
Understood.
And that to me, it hit me hard, because even in context of what we did at Fear Inoculum, and we spoke about it and we observed, right? You were there with me when people were failing to break that piece of wood with their fingers, and then just after short talk, they did it, right?
Right.
Simply through faith. They haven't changed much. They simply said, I believe. Not in God, not in any kind of, celestial butler that will send them magic energy and they will break through that thing with their fingertips.
Right.
They simply believe that movement has enough energy to do what I told them it's going to do.
Yes, sir.
But what it took for them to believe, to get a little taste, when one of my students, one of your best buddies, Clem, did it in front of them after 6 of them failed.
Yeah.
Miserable and painful, right? And then 5 of them or 4 of them, one after one, broke it on the first try.
Bang.
Right? So there was faith. There was something that they couldn't explain, yet they couldn't deny that it exists.
Right.
In learning and training, if you don't have that, if you backtrack and reverse engineer where it comes from, you don't have courage. Right. You are a coward.
Understood.
believing in something, having faith requires courage. And again, this is not necessarily in a religious or spiritual realm or whatnot.
Right.
Because when you don't have faith that there is something beyond what you know and can explain, you stagnate. Everything stops. And as one of our comrades in that class summed up perfectly, right? It becomes what? Perfected mediocrity.
Perfecting mediocrity. Yep.
So,
one important point that you brought up with regard to the translations, of fear from the direct translation, meaning reverential awe, throws a whole different cast on the scripture about the fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. Because rather than that shaky, trembling fear, or the reverential awe of God is the beginning of all wisdom. So it definitely throws, and this is the importance of it. That's why I love having these discussions, with you, because we share the faith, with Ryan because he does not, and yet he's done the reading. You know what I mean? It's the thoroughness of the analysis that you're craving when you're seeking to interact with people in matters of faith. So yeah, and you're absolutely correct. It doesn't have to be anything of a religious or spiritual nature. Just having faith in something existing outside of what you know and can comprehend. Because without that, you are absolutely correct. You're stagnating. With regard to building an army and with regard to fear, little departure here for a second. We were both there when we started getting the messages about what was going on in Moscow, at the Crocus City Hall, and we had a bit more one-on-one discussion about that later, about that and how it was reflective of some of the vulnerabilities here in the West. I would just a brief synopsis take for those who don't have the depth of connection. What would be your warning? What would be your admonition to the ordinary man or woman here in the West who is walking around oblivious to the nature of these things, to the nature of the evil that walks around them, and how prevalent and ubiquitous it is. Ubiquitous, that's my college word. I got like 3 of those.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, okay. Right under the radar. It's right under the radar. It's everywhere, but it's right under the radar, just hanging back in the shadows. And how do we acknowledge the depth of that without giving into the fear of it becoming crushing and stifling?
So here's the thing, brother. You started your program today talking about infrastructure, right?
Yes, sir.
And we can go deep into infrastructure and truly the core of infrastructure, which is economic foundations that provide the infrastructure, which is a separate discussion, and we may address it depending on how much time we have and how patient our listeners are here.
Right.
But on the basic level of infrastructure, as people see it with their eyes, right? Western infrastructures are commerce entities. They are entities to provide means for commerce to exist and do good. It's certainly not a war infrastructure. It's not even dual use infrastructure. It's strictly commerce oriented infrastructure. And as such, even from the engineering standpoint, whether you look at roads, bridges, the underground network, like, subway, comparing subway, not just by its beauty, let's say in Moscow or St. Petersburg to, let's say, the one in New York, right? There's, we can look at aesthetics and other things that we can detect with our eyes and noses and things like that and go like, wow, what a difference, right? But if you look a little bit deeper, much of the subway system in Moscow is capable to withstand ground nuclear strikes. I mean, this is not just for elites. Those subway stations and that whole infrastructure of Moscow's subway can accommodate over a million people.
Yeah. I'm a little bit of a Cold War history fag, as you're well aware.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was familiar with that. They from day one they had us on the civil defense because they actually looked to take care of their populace. It was incredible.
And there's more to it. When you look at, you know, here's the thing. You look at infrastructure and you think that this is be all end all. Infrastructure is the result of how system works.
Right.
And if people here have not realized yet that this system not only have failed us, but this is inherently failing system.
Mm-hmm.
When we're worrying about existing infrastructure that is built, maintained by the system, we're looking at the wrong place. We need to build our own independent, self-reliant, small infrastructures. That is the only way. We're not going to fix the bridges because what they're going to do, your city council, your state, your federal, whatnot, they're going to have a buddy make a bid on it. It's probably going to be pretty low bid. They're going to prove why it's proper and all that stuff. And then you have a shitty bridge.
Yep.
Or they're going to decide, like I just recently spoke to a friend from South Texas, you know what I mean? They have financial issues, but they're investing $10 million to build a new park. This is with the border crisis going on.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the councilman's brother, who does the irrigation, gets $1 million contract to do the irrigation for the park on the southern border. This is the system that no longer works. And for us to worry and look into the system and how they can fix infrastructure, our railroads, our bridges, our roads, our supply system, our trucking industry, our everything. Just remember what happened during the freaking pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. So people think, like when I'm pushing, let's say, events like I'm going in a few days in Camden, Self-Reliance Festival, right? I'm not pushing those events because I'm speaking there. Right. It's really the groups of people that you want to be around that will help you to build the system that's outside of a system, infrastructure that's not dependent on corruption and sellouts, and really the evil that's out there.
Right on.
Because it's pure evil.
For the people that are dependent on it, for the grazers, as I'm fond of referring to them, they're completely at the mercy of this, and they saw some of that vulnerability during the pandemic, when things were getting shut down, when supply chains couldn't be resupplied, and all of these things. But paint a picture for us real quick, because I mean you're familiar. I mean we're all tangentially familiar now, seeing what just 4 men pulled off at Crocus, seeing what just one errant ship did to a major commercial thoroughfare. How hard and how quick could it go south for those people who are going to be at the mercy of it? I mean, the people who are smart enough to plan ahead, not everybody's as dug in as we are here, but for people who have nothing, the typical American grazer, paint us just a real quick picture. How south can it go? How hard and how fast?
Can I just say, in using the, not proper language, how it ends up for those people? You are fucked. End of story. As far as what can get you there, well, in July, it doesn't have to be Dallas or Houston. In July, in Columbus, Ohio, let's disconnect electricity to half the city for 3 days. See what happens. See what happens. People go like, well, our grid, it's not that easy to disconnect. Well, maybe, just maybe, you're talking to a guy who, in his previous life, has studied things related to, sabotage work behind enemy lines and things like that. And it's not necessarily in a proactive way, but as far as how to defend against it. And to learn how to defend against it, because we were tasked with force protection of very high-end nuclear installations initially before we deployed to different places in the world, you start learning that even the infrastructure that is built mainly as a war infrastructure can be destroyed relatively easy by competent forces. Now, infrastructure that is built as a commercial entity, dude,
It's not.
it's not an it's not an infrastructure. It's a mirage. It's a mirage. And here's the thing, is that the scariest thing, if people need more inspiration to make decisions, and you always can find excuses. Well, this is where my work is at, in the city. This is where my family is at, and this and that. Okay, then shut up. Then you don't have a problem. You made a choice. You're going to be a grazer. You're going to depend on the system. And you're looking for people like me, Bart, many others, much bigger names, survivalist podcasts with millions of followers and all that. You're looking for them to give you a way out. Not until you change your life. You're going to have to sacrifice something. You're going to have to make a fucking decision, okay, and turn. And that turn, I hate to tell people, now I love to tell people, get the fuck out of inner cities. Get the hell away from your suburban life as painted by TV shows. What is American dream? You don't need 5,000 square foot mansion. You don't need newest Mercedes or Audi in your driveway. You don't. What you do need, even with minor, infrastructure irregularities that may happen very, very quickly. Okay. Can you make it for 2 weeks? The answer for 90% of grazers is absolutely not. 50% of them will be dead. The other 50% will try to defend their lives from those who don't even have a mansion or Mercedes. They live in public housing. Guess what? Food stamps are no longer accepted. People need to eat. Guess where they're coming? So people go like, give me a solution to a problem that has none.
Right.
Let me be blunt. You fucked unless you change something.
Right on.
But it's hard. Well, no shit.
Yeah.
Sparky, as Reverend Bart would say, no shit, Sparky. Right?
Well, I mean, and you've lived that example, because I mean, you were in the Dallas Metroplex for a long time, and then you and your wife made a conscious decision: we're out of here. And I would imagine
just before the summer of love, before the summer of love,
the Fentanyl Floyd peaceful protest.
Yep.
I remember sitting at that Denny's in the middle of that and you and I were the only two people in the place. And that poor guy that had to be working there, like, what the hell are these guys even doing here? But you lived it, man. You got out of that. And I would imagine a lot of people that you knew then who are still living in that concentrated metroplex, if they were to take a look at, your standard of living now, would probably be like, dude, what the hell, they don't understand that there's a greater motivation to that. Tell us a little bit about Fort Honey Badger, for those of us who haven't been there. I've sung your praises and the praises of your facility and the things that you do out there, but tell us a little bit about where you're at with Fort Honey Badger now and what you plan on doing with it going forward.
Fort Honey Badger is a small rural property in East Texas. We are without traffic, about 2 hours drive from downtown Dallas, about 2.5 hours from DFW Airport. The closest somewhat large city is Tyler, which is north of us. It's about 55-minute drive to there. It's a rural community of farmers, greenhouses, ranchers. Yes, just like anywhere else in the country, yes, there are people cooking meth. Yes, there is everything that you can find anywhere in this country and in other countries for that matter. We bought this property for a number of reasons. One, we wanted to get out of the city. Not that we only wanted, we knew that we need to. I wanted to have my own training facility that would not be regulated and regimented by any kind of entity. For that, we needed a place that would be in unincorporated area. So there's no permitting. This is private range. This is not public range. And it's not just ranges, we shoot actually a lot less than people think. We do other things, a lot more than people can comprehend. In addition to that, this is clean organic soil. There has been no pesticides in the soil for over 20 years. We do have groundwater. We also do have access to municipal water. This is a, how would you say, very conservative part of Texas. And again, not to get politics involved, but let's say in the last few elections, the percentage breakdown between the red color and blue color is somewhere around 78 to 16.
Right on.
In this county here, and this county has a lot of Latinos too.
Yeah.
So but they are very hardworking Latinos. As you know, my neighbors there, they're all dudes from Mexico. They leave at 4 o'clock in the morning, go to work. They come back at 5 p.m. They drink their cervezas. Yep. Twice a month they listen to their mariachi music, and then they tell me, like, hey, I say, if you need help with dogs when you travel or whatnot, it's all good. It's pretty damn simple out here. The sheriff's people are, they are local folks. They're not city police officers. They're not, per se dependent. A lot of them have their own ranches. So what Fort Honey Badger has become, it's our, it's still early in development stages. It's our homestead that happened to be also the place where I do my training. I prefer to do my training here because I'm not limited. I'm not regulated. I can do what I want the way I want it without hurting anyone's feelings or scaring someone shitless, because I do dangerous things. Right. And the idea, God willing, if business goes well or something very positive happens or whatnot, is to create somewhat of a mecca for people that I want to be here. Not anyone who has money.
Right.
I want people that I want here. As you already noticed, my invitation-only events and what kind of quality of people come to my other events, we no longer see fools. We no longer see idiots. We no longer see, like a lot of instructors in the industry say, there's always that one guy. I haven't seen that one guy in a long, long time.
It's been years.
Years.
It's been years since I've been in a class with you that I could even, where somebody was even touching up leaning knucklehead, Yeah. You've got a really, really solid crew, very solid crew.
So idea is eventually here to build, at least 12 to 15,000 square foot indoor training facility with indoor force on force combatives that will have ability to also do interactive training through multiple moving cameras and that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty serious about dedicating the rest of my life, or what I have left, outside of dedicating it to my faith and to my family, to doing this. I really don't have any other inspirations or goals, and one way or the other, I'm going to make this work. And partially, you are responsible that this will work, because, while you started with me putting pen to the paper on one book, maybe I'll do an expose on your podcast here that is actually 5 of them in the works.
Boom! Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first.
Oh, hell, I'll even give you the titles, Bart. You're going to love it, because you also know that you're going to be one of the people that's going to be proofreading all my shit, because, my command of English language is nowhere near yours, but at the same time, I want to keep a little authenticity where people can read it in my accent, right?
I think you sell yourself short on your command of English, actually, but we've had that discussion.
Well, still, I consider you a wordsmith, and I'm certainly not a wordsmith. I have certain control of it, but not on the level of wordsmith. So the first book that I'm writing now, and I should have it this year out and available, it's called Don't Be a Shitty Student, Escape from Mediocrity.
Right on.
The book number 2 will be Letters to Concealed Corinthians, as in, and that one you'll connect with what we just spoke about on not being an infant with a chainsaw.
Right on.
The third book is going to be Exposing the Gospels of Lies and Omissions, the Pharaoh, the Pharisees, and the Pretenders of Self-Defense World, and the Cult of Perfected Mediocrity. See, I am using things that I hear from my students.
Yes, sir.
Listen to the next one, guess, and tell your audience where that came from. Book number 4. Now imagine person who's a tactical ninja and all that stuff. Would he buy a book that in big letters says this? Give up. The up in capital letters. The ultimate secret of fundamental rewiring of your mindset for competence. And book number 5 will be, it actually came as I was writing the outline for my class here coming up on Friday at Self-Reliance Festival. It will be the book called Fight Like a Girl, Gender Neutral Asymmetry of Warfare.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Gender neutral asymmetrical warfare. That's brilliant. By the way, give a little bump for the class that you're going to be teaching, for the expo itself and your connection with it, and the nature of the class that you're teaching for the ladies.
Okay,
just for the ladies.
Self-Reliance Festival is the thing that happens twice a year in Camden, Tennessee, at my dear friend's John Willis's compound, SOE compound. John owns very successful company that makes tactical nylon gear and that kind of thing. SOE tactical gear, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's rightfully so. Some people refer to his stuff as a Versace of tactical nylon.
It really is, man.
It's very expensive. It's very high end. It's extremely high quality, but it's also something that you can say it's heirloom stuff. You will pass it on to your children.
True story.
So anyway, John hosts it on his compound, and a lot of great speakers, anything from radio communications to training your dogs to growing produce to making your soil perform better to raising fish to hunting to cooking to canning to all of this stuff, but it's all done in practical matter. It's not some kind of wannabe BS gathering of wannabe survivalists. It's actually everything practical. People can attend classes, separate sessions. Everything is being taught and people do it. And the amount of people that come there and they come, kind of unsure of themselves and they go like, well, I just don't know. I would like to do it. And John Willis, the way he is, he just ends up, he was like, shut the fuck up and go do it.
I like it.
Start with one thing. Get yourself a property, get out in the city, whatever it takes. If you can only be in suburbia, start creating community in your suburbia of people that maybe think like you or are worried about things that you're worried about. Start building something, because otherwise you're talking about shit that you cannot change and you have no control over.
That's right.
So I know John for as many years as I've known you, and I've seen John's path, how things progressed and evolved, right? And seeing John evolve from what he was from very aggressive, blunt person who was enjoying greatly, I would say, pissing people off on the internet, because he referred to haters as your most loyal employees. They work 24/7 and you don't have to pay them.
That's right.
Their head free. To the guy who now teaches people how to prepare for the unthinkable, or what most people think is unthinkable. It's very much thinkable. And hosting these events and bringing people like Joel Salatin, you know what I mean? Yeah. One of the foremost farmers and ranchers in this country.
You guys should Google that, man. Salatin's done some amazing work.
So we met him in person. I met him in 2 different conferences, but the one last in October was there at John's place. And so people like that, and when we discussed about my participation in it, and I'm doing presentation during the festival itself on conflict management, which you attended, the longer version. I'm doing very short version. And then Nicole, one of the ladies that organizes event at John's place, she goes like, hey, I'll maybe day before teach the class for women's self-defense. And I haven't taught women's self-defense class in years.
Right.
In years. Because strangely enough, I guess my stuff comes through as very savage and scary, and not a lot of ladies are interested in it.
Not accessible, I think, would be the term they would coin for that. But, yeah.
But that's a perception. So I started writing the outline for the class, and that's what the whole thing of Fight Like a Girl is. It is gender neutral, because really it's about disparity of capabilities. You don't have to have a penis or a vagina to experience disparity of capabilities. You are 54, someone is 25.
Yep.
You are slow and hurt, he's young and fast. You have
Yes.
disparity of capabilities. I have another news for you. You are just as strong, just as fast, but he has a gun out.
Oh,
There is
problem.
there is disparity of capabilities. You know what I mean? So this is not gender approach to, well, you have to fight like a girl, although there will be focus on that. And funny enough, without us ever advertising, dudes started asking about taking, being able to register for that class. So now almost half the class are actually dudes in
Right
the
on.
class in the class that's called Fight Like a Girl.
Right on.
So that's what I'm doing at that class. You can go to selfreliancefestival.com and find information. And yeah, it's going to be a big event. It's always over 500 people attending. A lot of good products, a lot of different vendors, good food, good. It's the kind of people you want to be around to learn things that you need to learn.
Definitely.
It's that kind of event.
Particularly if you're going to be living that purpose-driven life that we were previously discussing, because you were absolutely correct, and you're not just you're not just speaking out of your ass. You guys lived it. You made the move. You bought the property. You got the hell out of Dodge, and you guys are living now in a much more, for lack of a better word, humble standard of living than probably what you were living, in Dallas. But it's a better quality of life. It's a much better quality of life. Just
No
being aware
comparison.
of that
No
far,
comparison.
comparison at all. And it can be done. And for those people who are serious about it, it must be done. You and I have gone on about this forever. It's all right and good to have, I've got my, $2,000 rifle and my $800 glass, 6,000 rounds of ammunition and my 4 crates of this. Okay, great, man. But you're in a city of 4 million people and your life expectancy is what? About a week longer than the other guy. So again, it's difficult to get that across to people. What would you say to someone, and this is in light of the fact, and you and I both know this, that there is a certain percentage of the populace that's just unreachable, that there's no persuading them. They are locked into the urban mindset. They are dependent on the urban mentality. They are, as grazerific as they come. But for the guys that are one level above that, for the guys that are starting to open their eyes a little bit, but they're daunted, what would be step one? Step one for a person who's like, okay, I got to make a move. What's the first thing you would advise somebody to do?
You heard me use that phrase. First, sanctify your time. Do not be idle and do not waste your time. This is the currency that good creator has deposited into your account. The only difference is you cannot check your balance.
Right.
You don't know how much you have, right? So when people say, well, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that, I cannot go and take training, I don't have time to travel there and learn from these people, I'm so jealous of you because you have time. No, we make time.
Absolutely.
We make time. We cut out the bullshit that is meaningless and purposeless. Meanwhile, we talk about addictions, right? There's addiction to drugs, there's addiction to substances, alcohol, pornography, whatever the case might be, addiction to easy life, right?
Right.
This society has developed, and not accidentally, mind you, addiction to living idle lives. How often you see on social media people go like, hey, anybody around doing anything today? Implying I have nothing to do. I look at messages like that and I go like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious? I'm 16 projects behind when I start number 17.
Oh, shit.
You know what I'm saying? And I know I'm never going to get shoved, but there is joy in it. There's a race to it. And it gives you purpose. And because you have all that going, you are forced to cut out that which is meaningless. You're forced to look at things and go like, what I'm doing, does it have a purpose? And is it good for me and for my loved ones? Am I benefiting from it. So it's very selfish approach, the virtue of selfishness, right? I look at it, is this good for me? I don't care if it feels good. You remember the thing from the monk I read during the Fear Inoculum, right? About being in the desert.
Yeah.
But that desert does not allow any entertainment.
No, sir.
But desert itself, living in it, can become very entertaining while you're doing things that are good for you. So first, learn to manage time. And for some people, like my personality, because I jump from one project to another, it's not easy. Find a good friend. For me, that good friend is my wife.
Right.
You know what I mean? Megan is a very organized person. She's very orderly. I'm not. I have a shit ton of great ideas, except I don't have discipline to implement them sequentially and get on it. You know what I mean? Next minute, I'm writing a page for book one. 30 minutes later, I'm on book 5, chapter 7.
Right.
Because something bounces in my head like that. So again, surround yourself with people that will help you to sanctify your time. Like John Willis says, your frequency is determined by what kind of people you're allowed to frequent your life.
Amen.
So being selective who you allow into your space, so to speak. And sometimes it means cutting out people that have been in your life for many years. But are you benefiting from it? Me and you talked about it after the event a year ago, right? How many people were going like, are you okay, Bart?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Bart, you found Jesus. Are you okay? Because I'm really worried about you. They weren't fucking worried about you 15 years with the needles and addictions and all that stuff. But now they worried because you found the cross, right? And you kind of go like, do I want this in my space? Do I want them to affect my frequency? I submit to you, it may not be an easy choice. It actually is easy choice. This is one of your addictions. You're addicted to having useful people that justify your idleness.
Right.
You know what I mean? They will give you a reason to do nothing good. Hey, let's go drink beer. Now, if I drink beer with the company that we can have very nice discussion, whether it's about training, survivalism, politics, philosophy, faith, or even fucking guns for that matter. I don't care. But it's, you know what I mean? It's good exchange, it's good debate from which I will glean some insights and maybe start reflecting on things in a different angle. Absolutely, let's go drink beer. But if it's just to drink beer and look at ass and talk about who drives what car, get out of here, man. Get out of here. So sanctify your time. Sanctify your time. When you sanctify your time, you'll find the right things to do with that time. It starts there.
When you learn to sanctify your time and when you do take those positive steps to your life, the good news that I would offer is that you don't have to make that conscious decision. The conscious decision is not going to be to cut people loose. The conscious decision is going to be to change your actions, and the rest of the people will easily sort themselves out. I promise you, the number of people that have just fallen off on their own, I haven't had to forcibly cut anybody loose. They're just like, all right, we're done. He's up in a different direction now. It will handle itself. The choice to make is for you, what you choose to do with you for your time. Yep. And I think that was beautifully put. One thing I wanted to ask, or to give you the opportunity to do here while we got everybody's attention, because a lot of people have asked, it was like, well, what is it about his particular training methodology, his particular training approach, his particular view on the nature of training and the nature of the combatives training and defense training industry? What is it about Sonny that sets him apart? And I can articulate it pretty well, and I have at length with some people. But while we got you here on the platform, let him have it. What is it that sets you apart? And what is it in particular that you are bringing to the table that, without calling out any names of the usual suspects, that a lot of other folks in the industry are not?
Okay, well, that's a loaded question, Bart.
It was meant to be.
Not like I expected a simpleton question from you, but yeah, all right. Well, now you're putting me to the task, which I like. It's the correct amount of pressure and the kind of pressure that we get better when we function under that.
We challenge brother. That's what we do.
I'm not going to teach you how to fight.
Right.
I'm going to try to give you ingredients to become a fighter.
Right on.
Without you becoming a fighter, if I teach you how to fight, and I can, you're going to be an infant with a chainsaw. Now, the chainsaw may be a gun or your elbow or your fist. You still don't have what it takes to be a fighter. This is much harder fight. This is the grind in here and in here. People don't do that. And the thing about it is that I get it from the commercial standpoint, it's hard to sell. Mm-hmm. Because you tell people that I'm going to drag you to the very bottom of hell, of your fears, of your inadequacies, of your weaknesses, of your delusions, of your self lies and partial lies and omissions. Okay, we're going to uncover it. You're going to open your fucking eyes, look at it, face it, be embarrassed by it, and then we'll start to work.
Bang.
And then we'll start to work. This is not, you cannot package this product in a shiny freaking box and sell it as a desirable product. Each individual has to come to a point in their life where they realize that without it, we live an illusion of life. We're not even working on reaching our potential. Forget about exceeding, the norm, the common core potential. It's kind of like cheating. It's kind of like cheating to our creator. It's like adultery. By lying to ourselves, and then we are arrogant about our ignorance. It's a willful ignorance, and then we show arrogance about our willful ignorance. We're proud of it because I'm not so easily swayed by your fate, by your tinfoil views on things, by you seeking deeper meaning, whatever the fuck that means. It's so stupid. I mean, I'm just here to enjoy life. I'm just here to live and let live. You know what? I think the best way to sum it up is this. You are either a person who goes and climbs the Everest, travels across Sahara, and dives 1,000 meters in a sub that can collapse, or you're a guy living in a nursing home on life support. That's not living. That's not even existing. That's being vegetable. Most people in combatives community are vegetables. I'm trying to find people that are willing to wake up. It's not easy, as you know. I don't fill my classes with 30, 40 folks. You met people that come to my classes. These are truly, truly functioning minds that are attached to existing living souls. I can change the bodies, Bart. This is not that hard. But without addressing that, it's cosplay. It's freaking cosplay. You know what I mean? And I'm okay to take money from those who want to participate in the cosplay. Once in a while, when I go to Dallas, they will pay for my sushi. I'm no longer interested in having Lamborghinis and Ferraris. Tractor would be nice, but that's about it, really. And so the focus changes. So, my training, if you will, philosophy is this. I'm a grocery store. I'm a grocery store that has good quality organic produce. Anything you need to cook a good meal, pretty much I have it in the store. You're going to have to go to your kitchen. You're going to have to use your implements, your fire, your time, and cook it. I will even provide you with some recipes. Majority of training community, you know what it is, Bart? They don't know grocery store exists. They have a pan and a stove, and they think they can have a meal.
Or worse, prepackaged fast food that people have developed a taste for, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The tactical cosplay was a good was a good analogy as well, and you're not opposed to it, nor should you be. Somebody wants to kick down money and come out and play and wave their flag and say, yeah, I did this and I burned off 1,000 rounds like they do in everyone else's classes. You know, what's the average round count like for any of those people who won't be mentioned here? But you're looking at what, 500, 600 round count up to 1,000 in a 2-day class?
Actually, there are people that do up to 2,000 rounds in 2 days.
Oh, Jesus, man. That's good.
You know, just a week prior to Fear Inoculum, I was teaching a pistol class in Florida, 2-day pistol class.
Yeah, remember, Doug was down there, I believe.
Yeah, we fired 80 rounds.
Yep.
In 2 days.
And those people learned more from those 80 rounds than they would have turning money into noise than any other person, because every round had a what? It had a purpose.
And there was a lesson coming with each mistake, and mistakes were many.
Yes, sir. That is the beauty of it. Again, anyone who's been around me knows how highly I sing your praises with that, but the nature of the approach is that, I mean, it's easy to throw out the platitudes. Every round should teach you something. Maybe this round teaches you that you suck and you need to suck less. But there's an innate truth to that approach. You know, you can turn money into noise all day. And these days it's a whole lot more money that you're turning into noise when you get into these classes with high round counts, or you could make every single lesson, every movement, every round have a purpose. And bring it to that purpose.
You know, you can custom build that noise with stool music, and from which you will extract something that you never thought is there even in the first place.
Right.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Right. What is the prognosis going forward, man? Tell us about independent of, let's throw something out just for the secular brethren that are here, and they are many, about the nature of overcoming fear through faith of something outside of themselves. Doesn't have to be anything spiritual, religious, but we could go on at length, and probably should, about the overwhelming damage that fear does to people unbeknownst to them on a day-to-day basis, on fears that they don't even recognize that are fears. What is the way for the average person to really, really absorb and recognize their own fear and push past it, particularly if they don't happen to be a person of faith per se?
Okay, yeah. So actually, I think we should address that if it's the person who's not of faith, who's not of, let's say, Christian beliefs, right? Like both me and you are, right? You have to become somewhat of a mad scientist. You have to sit your ass down, you know, in the dark room of solitude of your own mind. And you have to ask, what is it that I'm afraid of, right? Usually, you know what a good place to start with is death. Right? Are you afraid of death? And, you know, in the group setting, most people will say, hell no.
Yeah.
Inside of our own minds, 99% of people will know, undoubtedly, that I am full of shit. You know, Stoicism is not religion, is not faith.
Right.
There was a guy named, I think, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right, Epictetus. He was a Stoic philosopher. Here's what he wrote, actually, believe it or not, before our podcast here, before I was a guest, I prepared myself for a little bit. So I wrote a couple of things down. I don't do that very often, Bart, but knowing you, I'm like, you know what, Bart can bulldoze over people who are not prepared because he has the capacity. So I'm not going to be bulldozed. So here's what Epictetus said. Death does not concern us because as long as we exist, death is not here. And once it does come, we no longer exist.
There we go.
You know, so when you look at the very fundamental, very really existential fear that most people possess of fear of death. And you ask yourself very tepidly, kind of like, can I even ask this question? Is your fear of death rational? Just to reread that phrase, what Epictetus said about fear, about death. Death does not concern us because as long as we exist, death is not here. And once it does come, we no longer exist. It's irrational fear.
It is.
So coming back from this big ball of fear, right? Fear of death, start examining smaller fears that you possess. And I'm pretty sure everyone listening who has a little bit more than IQ more than 70 can probably find pretty epic number of fears. And if you really do honest self-assessment on that, you'll find that absolute majority of your fears are irrational.
Sir.
It's a mind game. It really is a mind game. It's a choice. It's I know it's a cliche statement. They say danger is real, fear is optional.
Yes, sir.
Right? Fear is a lot about choice. Now, when we say choose one, fear of fate. Fate doesn't have to, although I think it's very, very big part, if not the biggest part, but let's remove the religious connotation or any kind of spiritual realm from it, right? Fate takes courage. Remember I said that, right? Do you think people that invented things that really change industries or our lives, do you think they had courage to even think that which we do now on daily basis with these devices, talking to our friends over in Japan with live video in real time, do you think that 50 years ago, while that shit was being depicted in Starship and Star Trek and all these other movies that I've never seen, okay, this was some sci-fi bullshit. There was nothing but it's a fantasy world.
Right.
Some crazy mother pluckers out there were sitting there and they had courage to assume that this is doable.
Yeah.
We don't think about it anymore.
Right.
We do it like eating a fucking candy. Hey, let me call Tahashi-san in Tokyo or Yokohama, right? And there is no thought. There is no thought. There's so much more to it, man. And so faith has certain courage, and I will say this: it takes certain recklessness, childlike recklessness, without the vanity and pride of a grown person.
Right.
I mean, be a little bit more childlike. It's amazing what our limits are. It truly is amazing what our limits are. And the whole postmodernist bullshit of trust the modern science and all that stuff. Modern science is a fence of fear. It puts you inside the fucking pen, and that fence is around you. That electric fence of fear. Do not step outside of it because you don't know enough to be able to face what's outside of these limitations. Right. The science will tell you. And that removes what? Not only removes your curiosity, which is the natural ingredient needed for our evolution. It removes what? It removes any interest in you becoming more.
Yes, sir.
In personal evolution. And also it removes another thing, accountability. Self-accountability. Because I don't have to be self-accountable with myself because science told me what I have to do. You know what? It's basically that thing from when the people say that cops will not do this if pandemic happens or whatnot. And some of us were saying, oh, yes, they will. Remember Nazi Germany?
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of those dudes that herded people onto the railroad cars into the Buchenwald and Oswensum and other nice places, yeah. They were great fathers. They were church-going, decent men, but they only did their job.
That's right. What was that book that Jordan Peterson was recommending? Ordinary Men.
Yep.
About the Polish police squad.
Yep.
And just that transition. In fact, you remember Young Buck from this weekend, and I was having that little word of wisdom with him. It's like you have to be, like Young said, you got to be familiar with your own shadow. You have to develop that. It's interesting that you mentioned that it becomes offensive fear, because at the same time it becomes offensive fear for a lot of those people. It becomes an article of faith, whether they want to admit it or not. They're taking it on faith that when they hand off that accountability to these experts, is that not an act of faith? I don't know this guy. I've never met him. I wasn't in college classes with him, but everybody says he's the guy, so I'm going to take it on faith, and I'm just going to follow him without accountability. It's
In one
in,
like, in one book, I heard something mentioned about false idols, but
right. So, what was that book? What was that book? The bestseller. I remember. It's
for 2,000 years and counting.
Yeah, it's huge, huge. Pretty funny. You saw the wife chime in here because you were quoting from Epictetus. She's still berating me for. I got very, very upset, because I've been working for years trying to get my anger under control. Not that you've ever seen that.
No.
But I was stranded at an airport, and she was trying to do, because I was heavily into the Stoics, and I was trying to be cool, and I lost my grip, and I was on the phone with her. She was like, "Bart, read your Epictetus," and I flipped out. I was like, "Epictetus can eat a bag of dicks." So she had to take that little dig. But it's interesting, the quote that you chose from Epictetus, because, again, when we are, then death is not here. And when death is here, then we no longer are. Because I remember a certain Russian back in 2011 when we had been in a plank position and our knuckles were bleeding and we were all hating life. me and 14 law enforcement officers and my little civilian ass, who said, and I quote, "You have nothing to worry about until it goes dark and quiet. Once it goes dark and quiet, you have nothing left to worry about." So wow. You were right in that Epictetus pocket there, buddy. You were right there.
Sounds almost like some sage Russian was there present or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, sadistically practical Russian. Yes, a very sadistically practical approach to life.
I wrote this gem down, that's sadistically practical, and it will be used. So for those who don't know, that's the thing that Bart blurted out during the Fear Inoculum, sadistically practical, and it really hit me. Like, I felt like this warm feeling that I'm like, yes, these are the people that I love that can come up with shit like sadistically practical. I'm like, it's special. It's special, man. It's like Bart is like my own personal, dinosaur Barney. You know what I mean? Like his speech sounds to me like I love you, you love me. That kind of shit. So, yeah.
It's a very special bond, brother. Very special bond.
Yeah.
We had a really good crew out for Fear Inoculum this year. If you're still on board, brother, you got to make it out. I'll be there next year regardless. Sonny will take you to some dark places, and you will thank him for the privilege. And a lot of people hear that, especially coming from somebody of my well-renowned personality, and they think, dude, no, I'm out. Don't. But if you do choose to bow out, good. There's a regimentation process. If you are not ready to confront those ugly parts about yourself, most people can't, man. I mean, you are absolutely right, brother. Absolutely right. For those who possess the capability, it's a combination of incapability, and then once we get past incapability, it's an unwillingness from there on, because the actual incapability comes to about this level, and from then on, it's all just a matter of unwillingness.
Well, I mean, look at our new friend. Well, your old friend, right? That Stone, right?
Yeah.
He came in. He's like Stone himself was telling about, where his like body weight fluctuated from this to that, right? From extremes, right? And his physical capabilities from marathon runner to losing his breath within first 2 minutes of doing something physical, right? And was he within the first 2 days in a very dark and familiar and uncomfortable place? Yeah. But I told you on the fourth day when we were there in the rain, or was it third day, whatever, when I told him about the IDF class, individual diagnostics for a fighter, he signed up right there while he's being destroyed.
Yeah.
So the willingness,
mangling him for round 1, and here he is signing up for round 2.
So that thing that you mentioned, willingness, right? It's not just willingness, man. It's I think it is part of self accountability and self respect. I mean,
Yes,
I'm not gonna allow myself to stay in this low place.
right on.
This is self love, right? This is loving yourself, right? In the correct way, not in the way that our fucking society pushes now. Hey, love yourself the way you are. No, 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 no. I love what I do to make myself better.
Right on.
This is what I love, and if we don't change that paradigm, man, it's all gonna remain tactical masturbation, tactical cosplay, and or tactical or combative or martial arts or whatever,
Right.
any field really, and so it's a choice. It's a choice, and we have freedom, and we have free will to make our choices. There's a saying that Satan will not put a chains on you. He will give you one link, and you will build the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah. What was if you could, two things I wanted you to go over here. One, the parable where he turns loose the donkey and all hell breaks loose, and everybody points and blames Satan. Right? All I did was turn loose. If you could tell that story, and also expound a little bit on the love your neighbor as you love yourself thing that we went into in depth in Fear Inoculum. But let's give him the donkey story first.
The donkey story. Right? So here goes the donkey story. So devil arrives in this village, and he releases the donkey from the rope. The donkey jumps the fence into the neighbor's garden, stomps out 70% of crops, eats the rest of it, shits all over the place. The woman of the house wakes up, sees it in the window, her crops destroyed. Very angrily, she grabs the gun and kills the donkey. The donkey's owner, from the neighbor across the fence, sees this woman killing his donkey. He grabs his gun, he kills the woman. The woman's husband sees his neighbor killing his wife because she killed the neighbor's donkey, because the donkey ate and destroyed the crops. So he kills his neighbor who killed his wife. Poof! The devil appears in front of this guy. The guy yells at the devil. He goes, do you see what you have done? And the devil answers, not much really. I just released a donkey.
Yes, sir. I wanted you to share that for Ryan's benefit, because Ryan and I have had that discussion at length about how people tend to they want to blame the devil. They want to blame the devil, and it's like, nah, man, nah, that's on you, son. You did that. All he did was bring the donkey. That's it.
I'm a big fan of Tool, and we had this discussion about Tool fans being so obnoxious and annoying, right?
Right.
But I quoted you from their song "Right in Two," right, where he says, Maynard sings, "Angels on the sideline, puzzled and amused. Oh, Father, why you gave these humans free will? Now they're all confused."
Yeah.
And it's simple, but it's profound in its simplicity. Because free will can be the biggest blessing, or it can be the ultimate curse.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: the choice in that is on us.
Absolutely.
So
we carry the weight of it.
That's that.
I love the analysis that we had about love thy neighbor as thyself, because again, we've got to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we can't begin with that by loving others at a lower standard. We can't let people get by with that, and I think a whole lot of folks out there can't get their heads around that simple concept. Why are you so exacting? Why do you demand so much? Because I demand so much of myself. I am literally loving my neighbor as I love myself. I wouldn't let myself get by with this depravity, this degeneracy, these failings, these, these, letting things go where I know that I needed to address them. I wouldn't let myself get by with that. And I'm holding you to the same standard. That is the essence of loving my neighbor as myself. And I just thought that was a
No, it's
really,
true.
really brilliant part of the discussion while we were there.
Well, a couple of conversations me and you had both in it within the group and on the sidelines, right? Where we kind of discussed our own, both mine and yours, let's say, behavior during these events, right? What we say to people, how we say it, how we present things, right? And here's the thing, man. A lot of people will say this thing. I just want to leave the world a better place than it was before me, right? That's a very commendable goal. It's great. I mean, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Question: how do you do that? How do you do that, right? To make things better, we need either more effort, better quality effort, or both. People that are committed and remain committed to exert that high-end, high-quality effort, right? And those people are probably going to be not just, your contemporaries that you are with. This would be how you would want your closest people, your loved ones, your family, your kids, your closest friend to be, right? How do we help them to get there? Well, let's look at it. So, again, this is coming back to biblical, but it can be applied in the sense outside of religious terms, right? The two most important commandments are what? You will love thy God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your strength, right? This is commandment, they divide it into two categories. Part of the commandment is referring about interaction with the divine, with God. The other part is how we treat our neighbors, meaning
Right.
other humans, right? And the second most important commandment theology teaches us is love thy neighbor as you love thyself. And like you were explaining, but the key understanding here, the key principle there is how do you love yourself? If you love yourself with excusing yourself the laziness, the adultery, the idol worship, be it idol can be alcohol, can be some other human being, can be whatever.
Yeah.
Money. If you excuse yourself and you go like, well, today was just one of those days where I cheated on my spouse, but it's just one day out of 30. I'm not going to do it again for the next 29. Or again, I'm giving pretty extreme examples, but this is just to illustrate things, right? You have to be sadistically practical with yourself. Why? Because you love yourself, and that is why you're pushing yourself hard.
Yes, sir.
Mercilessly to be the best version of yourself. If you love yourself like that, how are you going to love thy neighbor? With the same high demands. Now, you're probably going to be more forgiving about their transgressions because very often they will not live up to that standard.
Of course.
You should be very sadistic with yourself, but more forgiving with others. And that teaches people around you how they should love back.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be confined within faith or religion or even spirituality.
No,
It's just pure human interaction. You know what I mean? And if we do that in training, if we do that in learning environment, if teachers would do that with kids in public schools, think about what level of education and true learning kids would be getting.
Of course.
But no, they're coddling up, and system tells them, and independent school districts tell them, and our education secretaries tell them that you have to coddle up to the lowest common, not even the lowest common denominator. You have to coddle up to perversions. You have to coddle up to mental disease, to delusions, to whatever they bring. You have to make them feel right.
Yep. Not only indulge, but endorse.
Endorse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Remember we talked at Fair Inoculum that out of all mass shootings in the United States, only 4 of them had multiple shooters. Coming back to Moscow, right?
Yes,
now,
sir.
Most of the mass shootings in foreign countries, all of them had multiple shooters,
Right.
with exception of very few. And if you look at what's been driving forces between the mass shootings outside of United States and in United States, most of the stuff outside of United States and outside of Western Europe is driven by differences in ideology,
Right.
geopolitics, and religion.
Of
These
course.
are fundamentally made choices based on belief system. Now, we look in United States. You read manifestos and other interactions of these mass shooters that our media doesn't publish for many reasons, but that's separate discussion.
Right.
These are mentally unstable, sick, delusional people. It's not ideology. It's not LGBTQ. It's not. They are sick, and we allow them to become that by coddling up to the first signs of, oh, I don't feel like a man today. I feel like a girl. Oh, sure, go to girls' bathroom. No, fuck you. Look down between your legs. You have a penis, boy. To the boys' bathroom you go. Oh my God, this is so offensive. Is it? Truth generally should be offensive to those who want to live the lie.
Boom. Boom.
By very definition.
Yep.
But if we start living up to their lies and then enforcing those lies and allowing them to continue and push and demand that their lies are accepted, what have we done to truth?
Yeah. And getting back to the root of the conversation, we are not loving them the way that we are loving ourselves. I mean, I would hope that that's not the way that we love ourselves. I would hope that we are at least holding ourselves to a higher standard, but culturally they do not. And this is the inevitable product of that.
And here's the thing: I see the Julia, one of the ladies apparently watching. I don't know who the lady is. Maybe you know her.
She was my high school crush, Sonny.
Okay, that's
my,
sweet.
my middle school
That's
and high school crush. Yeah.
Yeah, and she mentions special need kids, right? That is special need kids. You know our common friend, good friend Tom Hollaby, right?
Yes. Yes.
There are kids that deserve all of the attention and support and everything else.
Yes, sir.
Right? But still, even if they are special needs, they're born with certain things due to medical or other objective reasons that, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Right? You allow certain things, you allow more things because their world is different. Their perception of the world is different. But do you allow them to go like, hey, my son thinks that he's unworthy to live. So I should accommodate and give him a knife.
Yeah, right.
Do we allow that? We don't allow that. Why?
Right.
It's irrational. It's dangerous. It's destructive. Yes, how is it non-destructive when a girl or a man, and again, I think this is where confusion started happening, was when we start equating love of a parent or family member or whatnot with fear of being confrontational with kids that you love.
Right on. When we start equating it with just blind acceptance.
Because we ourselves, and I think it's, in some way it's very self-centered, and it's sad to admit, but we didn't do it for them because we loved them. We did it to be loved by them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very hard choice for a parent to make, to go like, you know what, my son is not going to like me, possibly for weeks, possibly for months, because I'm being fucking hard on him.
But I have to do it. This is what needs to be done.
I am not here to be his best friend.
That's right. Amen.
That's not my job. And it's tough, man. It's really tough, because I have a lot of dear friends that, that for one reason or another, some objective, some subjective, their kids, their loved ones have turned in life and walked that path, and one way or the other, you participate in it, and it's hard to look back, and I get it. I can't imagine, because I haven't had experience with that, but I get it. But I had experience with other things, people that were affected by what we've done or seen in war, taking their own lives.
Yeah.
And truly blowing their brains out, or things like that. I had people from training community called me and messaged me, and I was the last person they talked to before they took their life. Some didn't. You were present at that a year ago.
Yep.
You know?
Yes,
And
sir.
this was not a friend of ours. This was the guy whom we never met.
Never met.
So these are not easy conversations. But if we don't have, and when we just go like, you don't know what it's like, I go like, you know what? I probably don't. Explain it to me.
Yeah.
Let's have the discussion, because otherwise we will have these unstable individuals doing terrible shit that they keep doing, and we're looking at bookends. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what happened here? What? We don't look at the process, how the whole society got there. And it's a uncomfortable look, man, because we're gonna have to fucking unravel and change a lot of shit that for some reason now majority of society, or at least the loud part of society, tells us it's virtuous to be that way.
Of course. Of course. And what does that do but feed our fear? Getting back to fear, feeds our fear of change, feeds our
Yeah.
fear of going against the grain, feeds our fear of not being accepted by a peer group, feeds our fear of being isolated and in the scope of the deep state or the system, or losing our job because we fell outside. Fear, 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 fear.
It's rough, man. It's rough, But if we don't start talking about it, like most people, I think, can sit down even with experience with stuff like that, right? Can sit down and ask honestly themselves a question. Overall, as a society, as a group, do you think we are moving in the right direction? Right? Yeah, there is within certain segments of society, there is certain awakening happening. Let's not confuse that with wokeness.
Right.
Right?
Of course.
And I'm not saying that lightly to be funny or to poke at certain people. I'm not.
Wouldn't have thought that.
But it's I love awakenings happening and even seeing in the small groups like ours a week ago, things that transpired with some people that were on the path, but then they had maybe not of such magnitude like we had a year ago, but even in the basic exercise of slow exercises doing while holding your breath, right? Like we had a few days ago.
Yes, sir.
And people had awakenings. People had experiences that I haven't had before. This is not me or my place doing it. This has nothing to do with it. It's just with time, when you understand how to put people in a certain place mentally where something else in them awakens to recognize that which is around us full time. Like people say there's nothing new under the sun. You are correct. There's nothing new under the sun. How much of that which is under the sun you're not aware that it even exists?
Sir. Yes, sir. Around us all the time, surrounding us all the time, interacting with us all the time in ways that we can't even detect, and we're just completely oblivious.
Those who have ears, let them hear.
Let them hear. Amen.
Question is, do you have ears? So there's that. But I think we should lighten up, Bart, because I think we're getting heavy on here. People are gonna go like, "Holy shit, is this like a seminary or something like that?"
We just brought him in for we brought him in for a brief overview. When they're ready to do the deep dive, then they will step up and they will get in contact with you.
Bart, I've been holding you here for 2 hours and 12 minutes for a brief overview. But
I tell you what, before we shut it down and sign up, please finish the thought, because you were.
If you indulge me really quickly, because I wanted to address something, I made some notes, because when I saw that you were going to talk about infrastructure.
Yes, sir.
Right. I just want to throw something out there, and it's not because of the situation, let's say, between the West and Russia or Ukraine war or whatnot, but overall. What do you think feeds the infrastructure? What makes infrastructure possible, whether to fix it, repair it, maintain it, build new infrastructure and all that? What is needed for that, right? What's needed for that is financial health.
Right, of course.
In this case, of whether it's going to be local, state level, city level, or federal level, right? Mm-hmm. Country level. So let's talk about infrastructure of the West in comparison to that gas station with beautiful churches called Russia. I want you folks to really think about that
Yeah.
infrastructure, and this is why I want to come back to it when I said if you don't gain independence from this sick, self-destructive system, you cannot expect any survivalists tell you the ways to survive what's coming.
That's true.
So let me give you some interesting things. And by the way, this is not from Russian sources. This is from the very serious economist from Germany, from Berlin. This is pretty recent, right? Here it is. Collective NATO, G7, EU GDP to debt ratio is over 100%. GDP to debt ratio. Collective. Some countries, like Australia and Canada, significantly more. One of those countries, there's no need to mention because if people listening, they're going to get offended because I'm writing their country, is actually approaching 170% debt to GDP ratio. Okay. Russia, external debt as of December 2023 is 326.6 billion US dollars. If you compared it to a Western approved GDP, which includes all the service industries and all the other stuff,
Right.
that is less than 10% of Russia's GDP.
Yep.
If you compare it to GDP with purchase parity, PP, which is actually a much more realistic figure, Russia's GDP, debt to GDP ratio is 6%. It is the lowest in the world, lower than Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, any of other very, very rich countries. Listen to this. Here's an interesting one. You know that external debt of $326.6 billion? Russia can pay it off cash today.
Yep. Easily.
Easily. And I tell you what they can pay it off with strictly profits, not what they have in liquidities. I'll get to that here in a second.
Right.
They don't need to tap any international capital markets. So they are not vulnerable to any sanctions on bond issues.
Right.
We are. They can fund themselves on profits alone because they have account surplus. Even during the war, which, let's be direct, this is not a war between Russia and Ukraine. Russia is fighting the whole NATO, 31 countries in Ukraine. Right? International reserves. Before war, it was over 600 billion. 300 billion of those are frozen. Listen to this. In foreign reserves, another 150 billion is in monetary gold, and another 150 billion is in Chinese currency, yuan, not in US dollars.
Yep.
Guess what that tells you? They have fiscal fortress. This is what they built. By the way, the architect of that fortress is a woman. So if you want to talk about women not being respected or oppressed in Russia, you may want to check some facts. And this is based on rock solid economic fundamentals. None of the Western politicians understand that.
I'm really glad you decided to bring this up. I'd considered like trying to steer it in that direction, but I'm really glad not only that you brought it up, but that you had all the receipts like right there available to catalog, because here's
another interesting fact. Internal debt. All the Russia's internal debt based on domestic T-bills. And it's 200 billion, which is 7% of it is owned by outsiders. Only 7% is owned by outsiders. 93% of those T-bills is owned by Russians. Here's the interesting thing. How much of U.S. internal debt you think is owned by countries like China?
An obscene amount. Overwhelming
So,
majority.
do we want to talk about who has leverage, where, over whom?
Of course.
Do we want to talk about financial health of a system?
Yeah.
on system that you want to rely on when shit goes to hell.
Yeah.
And this is liquidity in Russia is approaching 20 trillion.
Yep.
What is our national debt?
Well in excess of that, 10 times that last I checked.
No,
Yes.
I think it's double that. It's like
Yeah.
38 or 41 trillion. They have liquidity of
I,
20 trillion.
I think it's a little higher than that, but we'll roll with your figure for right
Yeah.
now. Roll with it. We'll roll with it.
So liquidity of 20 trillion, debt of 200 billion, which is less than 10% of Western standard of GDP.
Yes, sir.
That is, folks, the true infrastructure. That's the infrastructure that finances all other infrastructures that you can touch, feel, see, drive on, get deliveries, and your basic supplies, your electricity, your phone services, and all that stuff. That infrastructure rests on this infrastructure.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, of our expenditures of $900 billion for a year for the military industrial complex, because we are defenders of the true democracies with 140 bases around the world.
Right. Of course.
You may want to ask some questions.
And I'm glad that you hit with that, because it is exceedingly frustrating trying to get that across to people. It's real easy to believe when nobody's bringing the receipts and you're listening to a glowing box and you're following that Maddow guy, and even I'm even more disappointed in the so-called conservative network, because it's paint Putin up as the bad guy, and we're Americans, damn it, we stronger than them damn old Russies, and it's like, bro, you don't have even the most basic understanding of economics. You don't realize that. Again, the disparity in positions, like we were talking about earlier with the fight like a girl class, like the disparity in strengths, and the disparity in abilities, and therefore options. People don't get it. It's real easy to be jingoist about it and get caught up in slogans, but the factual reality of it is, we're a house of cards, man. We are a house of cards. We are fighting this proxy war on money that doesn't exist to prop up a country that is running on money that doesn't exist. And
at the cost of 500,000 deaths.
Yep, 500,000 deaths so far.
So far. It's going to be more. It's going to be more. But here's the thing, Bart. When you look at one country, Russia, which is, according to a lot of Western propaganda, is really not developed country, it's developing country, able outproduce the whole NATO in the production of freaking artillery shells. That's 31 countries, to include countries with higher GDP than Russia.
Yes, sir.
What do you think is behind it? That's the infrastructure that's behind it. They build their infrastructure not only for commerce, they build their whole infrastructure for both commerce and war. It has sustainability, and it has a mechanism to survive hostile actions. Our is paper tiger.
Yep.
It's a paper tiger. And it sucks, man, because this is my country. Although I'm originally from there or whatnot, but this is where my kids are born. This is where they're going to live. This is where I'm going to live.
I know.
And
that's the heartbreaking part of it, man.
Yeah.
History, like God, has a sense of humor.
No shit.
It's just so interesting looking at the absolute polar shift, the absolute switch in polarities from when we were kids.
Yeah.
From when we were kids, hating each other because somebody had told us to. But you guys were the evil empire and the source of all things that were ill in this world. And I'm sure there was similar propaganda on your end, but to see that evil empire, that enemy of freedom, be the nation that Snowden had to run to, right? But when he exposed the surveillance state here, I mean, that's microcosm versus economic macrocosm here, but just to see how it's all turned around, where we have become the force for domestic repression of our own population, getting ourselves involved in foreign ventures that we have no business in, a complete loss of moral principle. People can say what they want about Putin, the man, but what he represents and what the Russian people have come to represent, oddly enough, are the last great hope of the values that once identified the West.
Yep.
Again,
You are right. It sucks to say that, Bart. I wish you were fucking wrong. You are not.
Believe it.
You know what I mean? And this is the guy who our media called sham elections. In this last election, last week, he got
while he defends Zelensky, who just canceled him outright.
Yeah, he got 88% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
He's practically the only leader in this world that can say, because we say that it's sham elections, but not a single fact of non-transparency, of corruption, or anything else like that. They say, well, people are falling out the windows. You want to check what's going on in the state of Virginia, West Virginia, and around Washington, D.C. and Maryland?
Thank you very much.
This is not for Facebook or any other media, but come see me. I'll tell you some stories that I'm aware of. Many of them I'm not. And, he's the one who can say Russian people. Our presidents cannot talk for American people.
Right.
And I saw someone made that, comment that Biden is making it worse. No, Biden is making it funny. This is what we're seeing with that guy is elderly abuse.
Yeah.
It's an elderly abuse. That guy cannot make decisions. He cannot string a sentence together. They're abusing him as an elderly person who should be taken care of in the facility.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But the people that making the decisions, we're worried about China. We're worried about this. Be more worried about what's happening in Washington, D.C. and certain places like, Davos and World Economic Forums and International Monetary Fund and Brussels and London. Be worried more about that. Our danger is not in Beijing or Moscow or Tehran.
No.
Much closer. Yes. Much closer to home.
Inside. It's internal now, as well as being, guided by those external interests. It's internal now.
Absolutely.
Got a lot to ponder, brother. Got a hell of a fight coming up.
Well, I'm glad I have you on my side, brother. It's good to have dudes like you and many others that you became close friends and brothers with. It's encouraging. We don't need big numbers. You know what we need? We need big hearts and working minds. We don't need big numbers.
Yes, sir. And solid souls, brother. Solid souls. Yep. Believe it. Man, I'm really glad we could put this together finally, brother. Really glad we could put this together. For anybody who is interested, guys, whatever skill set you're looking to improve, whether it's, again, if you want to go the distance and you want to take that serious deep dive inside yourself, we can recommend Fear Inoculum. If you just want to sharpen your skills with a carbine platform or a pistol platform or some hand-to-hand work, Sonny Puzikas, Forward Training Concepts, find him online. For my guys down in Texas, you got no freaking excuse. You've got a tremendous asset right there in your backyard. So no excuse for that. Brother, I appreciate you all to hell, man. It has been quite the interesting trajectory since that long weekend in 2011. But, man, I thank God for your presence in my life. I thank God for everything that has come our way collectively since that day, man. I mean, mysterious ways and divine plans, and you can't even do it justice. But I'm glad you're here, brother. I'm really, really glad you're here.
Likewise, Bart. Likewise.
Right on. We're going to go ahead and shut it down, folks, but I think we should probably do this another day, get like maybe a little more target focused on one particular thing or the other as world events progress. But I wanted to get you on here so we could get that overview, man. I wanted people to get a look inside your head and to get a feel for why I have so vociferously sung your praises over the years. So glad we got that knocked out, brother. God bless you, man. We will see you again very, very soon.
God bless you, Bart. Take care of yourself.
Yes, sir. Take care. All right, guys. Brother Sonny. You got to see it for yourself, experience it for yourself. I started to say I am not given to hyperbole or exaggeration, but that would be a lie. Uh, but you can see here that in this specific aspect, I am not being hyperbolic or exaggerating in any way, shape, or form. Because very sharp mind, body, soul. He can make you a harder target, make you harder to kill, take you to some dark places, show you some places in yourself, in your own mind, body, and soul that need to be worked on. So take the step, man. Choose to overcome your fears. First step is breaking through to the other side of that fear. I thank all of you guys for showing up. We're gonna close with a prayer because we do that, particularly here on Easter Sunday. Lord God, I give you thanks for men like Sonny, men like my other brothers in Christ, my other brothers in arms, with whom I've crossed paths. I give you thanks for the strength and the clarity. I give you thanks for the gift of being able to communicate these ideas with people, of putting people in my path that challenge me to overcome my own fears, my own limitations, and make me a better person, Lord. I believe in that divine plan. And on this day where we celebrate the resurrection of our Lord, your Son, scourged, tortured, and murdered on that cross to buy redemption for what could not be redeemed, I give you thanks. I give you thanks for that rebirth of hope to choose light over darkness, for that rebirth of hope to choose strength over weakness, good over evil. And I thank you for surrounding me with men that will push me to be a better vessel to that end. I ask for your blessings on those that love me, those that I love, people that are in my circle and people that are not, for people that are struggling, for people that are searching, for people that are asking. I ask that you answer them. Touch their hearts in a way that can bring them home, Lord, because I recognize the enormity of the fight that we've got ahead of us, and I realize that we are going to need all righteous men on deck. Thank you for all your gifts, your blessings, your grace, your forgiveness. I pray these things in the name of the risen Christ, whom I ever serve. Amen and amen. Folks, I appreciate y'all being here, man. I really, really appreciate y'all being here. I've got some new faces here. Hopefully we did not disappoint. Hopefully we delivered for you. We'll see you back out here again. I'm going to close real quick, like I always do. I'm going to pass around that little digital collection plate. If you guys want to throw a little coin in there, if anything either of us said, changed your view or had any effect on you, you want to throw a little coin in that digital collection plate, it's there. I'm on PayPal. I'm on Venmo, Cash App, Facebook Pay, you name it. I'm there. But mostly this is a labor of love, folks. So if you can't, I totally get it. Reluctantly, we're still living in a Biden economy for at least another few months. So some of you aren't going to be able to, but I'll tell you what you can do. If you want to spread the word, if you got your own social media platform and your own social media audience, you want to share it with them, let them know there's a fat, toothless, crippled crane operator with some opinions that likes to get on and rant and rave for a couple hours every Sunday. He's a like-minded, a kindred spirit. Maybe you'll dig what he's putting down. Check him out, and you can share on your own social media profiles. But here's what you can do: not just for me, but for yourself. Brother Stone is on board. Brother Stone is on board. He would tell you you can live the three. What do you mean live the three? The three prime directives. The signal-to-noise ratio is all jacked up right now. They will try to bury you with the noise. You've got to be that signal that breaks through the noise, that article of substance that breaks through the pointlessness and the fog. Signal above noise. You got to be that light in the darkness. They will try to bury you with the darkness, dehumanize, demoralize, emasculate you with the darkness, have you thinking that nothing exists but the darkness. You have got to be the light that punches through that darkness. But more importantly, man, you have to be the strength in a world full of weakness, and that is the iron rule. That is the prime directive, strength above all. Why? Because if you don't have that strength, and I'm not talking about just this kind of strength, I'm talking about here, and even here. If you don't have that fortitude, if you don't have that tenacity, you are not going to be strong enough to punch that signal through the noise without strength. Without strength, you are not going to have the fortitude and tenacity to carry that light through the darkness and break through the darkness with that light. So strength above everything. That is the prime directive. Live the three, baby. Live the three. Strength, clarity, and discernment, man. When you look at the other three, that second set of three, the things that I pray for every single time without fail. Strength, clarity, and discernment. He's there. He's there. He speaks to you, and a lot of you guys out there are like I was for the longest time. You hear him, but you're not listening. Learn to listen. Get over yourself. Find some humility. For all of you, man, I wish you strength, clarity, and discernment going forward. I love each and every one of you guys. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. I'm the Reverend. That is the gospel. We will see you next Sunday. Thanks to Brother Sonny for coming out. Hope you guys got something out of that. I love y'all. God bless you. Peace.